Hello, recording this video. Bit of a busy night. Tried to record something earlier and realized my microphone wasn't on. So hopefully my voice lasts. It's already starting to wane. Alright, well, I'm just going to get into it. To rearrange my books here. I started speaking on all this stuff. And then, like I said, realized too late that my recorder's off. Actually, you know what? Let me, because y'all are going to want to see me. And see this stuff. I'm going to open this up bigger for now. You can see better, so actually this probably does work out better. Anyways, that's science. Alright, so what this video is, I should actually explain, is me going over the books I love, the books that influence me, the books that have had at least some key influence on my mind. Because being an author, well, people are going to want to know that. So, as usual, this video is recorded and prepared for those of you in the future. Hello, future. What is it, 2040 or something? Some of you will be watching this in 2025. Some of you, 2050, 2060. Anyways, this is just so you can see, what things influenced Jonathan, what things, were put into this head. First book, can't go without mentioning this, my study Bible into King James, because I do believe, for my studies, I have a book on that this is where God preserved His Word. It's pretty obvious. Sure, you can definitely get God's Word from other books, and this is probably one of the better of the new ones because they actually use the right text, but King James 21st century. However, the best still stands to be the King James. Those of you who are picky, it is the 1769 version, I believe. Anyways, this is a Ryrie Study Bible. I don't particularly care for his notes. Ryrie's notes can be stupid sometimes. However, I keep the Bible, and I have used it for, since 2007, because it's a gift from my pastor, Pastor Ted Wyndham from Victory Baptist Church, Darlington, South Carolina. That was our home church for a while. He gave it to me, and just before I went off to military, Air Force. I did 6 years in the Air Force, starting in March of 2007. So, that's the first book in my life. The Bible. The Holy Bible, because I'm a Christian, and I believe it. I believe it's true, and because I believe it's true, and we'll touch on this in some of these other books, I believe that there is, the Earth is pretty young. 5,780 years, if the particular Jewish calendar I'm referencing is true. That's the exact age of the Earth right now. We're in the year 2020, and Christ, according to my studies, Christ was born in 2 BC, died in 33 AD. We started, of course, counting time, 1 BC, 1 AD. Anyways, yeah, here we are in 2020, and according to the Jubilee calendar, it is the year 5780 or 5780 Jubilee calendar. So that's since creation, 5,780 years since creation. The year could be a little off because obviously the Jews their history was interrupted a few times, though their very fact that they still exist and their nation continued, that's, what gets in the Bible proofs. We'll touch on that here. What do we do? Well, I guess we'll get into this stuff. All three of these books, these are kind of similar. Actually, all of these top ones here. So, End Times, Harbinger, Jonathan Cahn. I thought this was a pretty awesome book. I loved how he explored some of the passages in Scripture that were prophetic, and he shows how they might have tied in with 9/11 and the events that happened and how God was working with America. Love this guy, Rob Skiba. He's got a YouTube channel. You can find Jonathan Cahn on YouTube as well. But he has a channel, and love his channel. A lot of good information there. But this book here, just really good. Kind of from Genesis all the way through to Revelations. He kind of explains how it ties into some of what we've seen in history. As you can see there, there's the U.S. Capitol building, and behind it, the Masonic Pyramid. So that gets into a little bit of conspiracy. And speaking of conspiracy, in similar fashion, touches on the Bible, goes through history, shows how that kind of relates to what's been going on. This is by Dr. Tom Horn. Doesn't have his doctorate here, but he is a doctor. Brilliant guy. I have a couple of his books. These ones I just discovered, again, this video is being put out in 2020. I discovered these just last year, 2019. But amazing writing by Gary DeMar. I really love his point of view. He points out how some of the traditions in eschatology among modern American Christianity have issues, and they do. Speaking of modern American eschatology, this book, not my favorite book, but I read it, or I read large chunks of it, and I studied it a bunch, and it is really like the textbook for independent fundamental Baptists. This is what they largely all believe with end times eschatology. That's the study of end times. And speaking of the modern church, this book points out the issues with modern Christianity and how there are a lot of pagan roots. So, excellent book. Taken many notes from this book. This gets into the scientific realm. This is a nice practical book just showing how angels, demons, space, dimensions, how that all works compared with the Bible, what the Bible says. So, very practical book, really cool. Didn't actually get to finish reading it. Still need to read the last few chapters, but I loved it. I enjoyed this a lot. All right, and going deeper into science, this book is kind of like a science reference book for those of us who are Christians, who believe the Bible is true, who believe the earth is young. We believe in creation science, which is just simply the science of how the earth and beyond was created. And this book really goes into the details, because obviously Darwinists, evolutionists are going to say, oh, no, carbon dating and all that. This book shows how that all is nonsense. So, excellent reference book. It's highly recommended by Dr. Kent Hovind. It's written by Vance Farrell. Okay, moving on. This book is amazing, by one of my favorite preachers, Michael Hoggart. He has a YouTube channel. Love his YouTube channel. A lot of good information there. But he helps prove and show the divine order in the Bible. So many people, and I've heard it so many times, they say, hey, the Bible's chapter and verses weren't put in initially, therefore they're not inspired. And I've always thought that was strange as a kid, but as an adult I think it's stupid. It's downright stupid. Really? You think God's going to allow us to put something like that in his book and not guide it? Well, this guy does an amazing job of showing how obviously God guided that process, because the numbers, not only written in the book, but mentioned and talked about, there is a divine order to God's book. Of course there would be. God knows everything. He's not going to let that slip. Now, a couple more spiritual books here. Now, this one's amazing. This goes, I was kind of talking about more of the nuts and bolts Christianity with that one, but this gets into the spiritual side. This is an amazing spiritual book. It helps explain why we have sin. It helps explain, more so, it really helps a Christian who's struggling with, why do good people suffer? Why do the innocent suffer? This book is amazing. It has a movie too, so if you're not into books and you'd rather watch, you can watch the movie. You will get the same things, but obviously for book readers, highly recommend this book. I read it through, I think 3 times through. Just, I love it. It's awesome. As it says there, it's definitely, or says down here somewhere. Yeah, this is like the Pilgrim's Progress for our generation. It's that kind of a mind paradigm shifting. It helps open up more of understanding God better. So, highly recommend that book. Another highly recommended book, Christianity. This one obviously is a bit older, but by one of my favorites authors. The logic in here is just solid. Some of this is why I'm a Christian still to this day, because I grew up Christian, and accepting it because I was taught it and preached at. But as an adult, I realized I need to question things, and I quickly realized that is a good way to go through life, is to question things. These books help me find the answers. That's why I'm still a Christian. I'm still a Baptist. Speaking of being a Baptist, I have... Oh, where did I put it? Did I put it away? I'm confused myself because I thought for sure I had a book here. I should have it here. Where'd it go? Sorry for the distraction. Did I really go over already? Oh, it's sitting here. Okay. Yeah, I was confusing myself. All right. All right. So let's move into history here. No, actually, I'll wait on that. We were talking about science, so I'm going to move back to here. Proof of the Bible, amazing book, and this connects with a website of the same name by that guy, Dr. Walt Brown, one of the premier creation scientists of our day. But like I said, he has a website where he's always updating, so you get the most up-to-date information. It's an amazing, sort of like an encyclopedia for creation science, just explaining how creation, the flood, and all of that works. So amazing book. All right, so this stack. This is the next stack to finish off the spiritual books. Article volume. This is not necessarily by any one author. It's letters. It's a combination of letters, key letters, like to history in the Bible, especially for Christians. We love this stuff. Letter of Pilate, Pontius Pilate, the one who tried Christ. It's in here, so you get his point of view of Jesus. 2 letters, I think it's 2, or at least 1. There's a letter from Gamaliel, there might be 2. Gamaliel, he trained Apostle Paul. You get to hear his point of view. He interviewed Joseph, Mary, Lazarus, and Mary and Martha, all these people. So Gamaliel's letter, that's pretty awesome. And you also have a letter from Caiaphas, the high priest. So, I love this book. Really cool read. Before I get to that one, this one first. This goes into just showing what happened to the 12 tribes. An awesome book by Yair Davidian, and just shows you, how the modern nations of Europe are descendant of the lost 10 tribes. Some people don't pay attention, but in our Bible it shows us that after Israel and Judah were released from captivity, those of you who know your history, your Bible history, know that the nation of Israel was captured way back. This is BC. Captured by Babylon and Assyria. Well, eventually they were let go, but they didn't all return home. This book helps shows where did the other 10 tribes go? Because according to the Bible and history, for the most part, only 3 tribes returned: Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And of course, Judah became the name. It stuck. The Jews, now they're always known as the Jews because that was the largest tribe that returned. Of course, there was something there about Jacob's promise way back when. In your name shall they be called. Anyways. Continuing on the Bible proofs, this just shows some really cool concepts of just how the ancient Chinese language has the story of Genesis in it. It's a really cool read. It's a fascinating read. This book is an amazing study on Jesus Christ. Basically is proving that he's a real historical character. That's very good. This awesome book. This kind of jumps more into modern times. But it's by Dr. Stan Deyo. He's a scientist who used to work for the military-industrial complex, secret black projects. He designed UFOs. He helped work on them. He worked in Pine Gap, Australia, which is the Area 51 for Australia. So very cool book. Dr. Stan Deyo has a YouTube channel, so you can look him up, Stan Deyo. Do I have his name there? There's his name, Stan Deyo. Okay, hopefully you saw that. Standeyo. All right, this is one I was going to reference earlier because I'm a patriot and I love history. This is just like a combination of both, as well as Bible history. This is pretty awesome. American Crimson Red by Pastor James R. Beller. Love that book. And then this, I don't do that or next to last. Okay, this one. This is a great history book. This really pulls out and shows how the there's a record in Genesis about the foundation of nations. He helps show how that's the most accurate record for those early times where we don't have very many historical records, and he shows how it connects to the early foundations of, I think he does some of the Middle Eastern nations and a bunch of the European nations, but it's just, I love this book. I love the history in this book. And then this awesome book, which connects with a documentary that these guys put out. It's done by a couple of scientists, astronomers, I believe. The Privileged Planet. It's an amazing read. I've not read all of this one, but I have the documentary. I've watched that several times. It's really good. It just shows the coincidences of the existence of planet Earth, where it sits in the universe, how it works with the solar system and the galaxy and all of that, it is so much easier to explain with God. And obviously some people are going to say, oh, that's a weak argument. Fact is, trying to explain it outside of God gets ridiculous. It gets nonsensical. And if you study creation science and the stuff I've referenced already, and this isn't all of it, this is just some, but like I said, this is stuff that has influenced me most besides the fact this is the stuff I own. But there's lots of tools, especially online nowadays. You just look up Dr. Kent Hovind, Ken Ham, creation science, Jason Lyle, Dr. Walt Brown. It's a number of names you could look up. If you want to know the truth about the Bible, and is the earth young? Is it really, less than 6,000 years? All right, this is a key book. I've read and studied this a couple times. This helps to show you why the King James. It just shows you that it is the superior text. And books like this is one of the best. Shows you why. All right, so this one, it's a heavy one. And as in the topic, the material inside, it's history. It shows you the history of these guys, which the New Testament mentions in Revelations twice, but they're better known today as the Illuminati. But yeah, this guy does an amazing job of showing their trail of their history. So very good read. All right. This is going into history, but also, of course, ties into the Bible because he talks about a lot of stuff in the Bible. And he was an eyewitness of the events that Jesus prophesied were going to happen to Jerusalem in 70 AD because Josephus was the historian for the Roman army. And the whole story of how he got to that position is really fascinating. But anyways, this book is awesome, especially, as I said, about the War of the Jews there, what happened to Jerusalem in 70 AD. That book is a must. This is an old book, too. Should mention this is a 1906 version. I believe it's a 1906 version. Not 100% sure about that because it's got this note here. It doesn't actually say 1906 here. Though it is possible we could look up that and find out. Anyways, it is an older version. I do have an older version, but I don't want to mess that one up, so I use this one. But there's a whole controversy with Josephus with 6 or 7 places where numbers were changed. And those scholars and researchers have dug deep, found out that there was a change. And if you find manuscripts written before like 1572, something like that, before then you see the original writing, what Josephus wrote, and for some reason somebody altered a few numbers. Don't know why they did that. But if you understand it, then okay, then Josephus' record was accurate if you just know what the original numbers were. Speaking of history and change and all that, this book's awesome because it shows you where, I believe, the true side of the temple is. It's not on the Temple Mount at all. It's been forgotten. It's by Dr. Ernest Martin. I love this book. Read through it. I've studied it, referenced it several times, but it helps to show where the real Temple Mount was, which would be 600 feet south of the temple wall that exists what they call the temple wall that exists currently. I'm trying to find a picture because there's a couple pictures in here, and of course I don't find it. There it is. There it is. I love that picture. It's a really good drawing. So this is the traditional Temple Mount today that exists. There's a diagram below to show you, and then over here is what the real temple would have looked like, where it is 600 feet south of the Fortress Antonia, which today is called the Temple Mount. It never was a temple. Though there were temples on top, but that's getting into that too deep. Don't need to do that. Moving on with some of my science books. This book goes into the science of 9/11, video pictographic evidence by this awesome professor here. She does an amazing job. I really enjoyed this book. Loads of detailed bits of information in here. It is awesome. Awesome book. Awesome read. All right. This is a historical book. This one, it's very old. Let's see. I think, if that date is correct, it's 1868, I think. Anyways, This is a copy of Abraham Lincoln's writings, letters, correspondences, as well as distinguished men of his time. So other writings, but it's called Reminiscences. Reminiscences of Abraham Lincoln. I think that's how I say the word. But there you go. Reminiscences of Abraham Lincoln. Because it's always good to read from the guys in history directly if you can. Or at least read people that knew them. Alright. Continuing on with the science books. This is an awesome book I got in college in 2013. Really opened your mind up to realize that as powerful and as epic and awesome as science is, it does have limitations. When you realize that, it helps shift your paradigm a little. It can be a paradigm shifting book depending on what you knew going into reading it, but very awesome book. This book I read when I was a teenager, and it had a huge influence on me. This really helped me with my critical thinking. At least it set a foundation for my critical thinking. I love this book. And this is kind of like one of the key books to getting into understanding conspiracy, because you hear about conspiracy. This is a little book, but this book really helps get you into understanding. What are the conspiracies? Is there any truth to them? Obviously, there is. I can tell you that. Being a researcher, I've got loads of books here on many other topics, but this is like the starter. Alex Jones highly recommends this book. I do too. And this could be another one. In a way, this book here will mention the conspiracy of the Federal Reserve. Well, this one will spell it out in depth. Written by Dr. Edward Griffin. I have a 5th edition. Just an amazing book. Oh, and I'm dropping my notes. What is this? What is this? That's funny. Anyways, yep, great book. Edward Griffith, you can find him online, I believe. You can find interviews at least. All right, this is a book I got in college. Last year the years I was in college, which would be 2016, 2017, that time frame. I love this book. It's really good. It's got a lot of self-test stuff in it, but I've done a lot of marketing too, because anybody who wants to know in the future, I have certain plans and certain things I'm going to be doing leadership roles. So I love this book because it helps me. I've still got my notes from college in here. Helps me to see how to be a better leader and just kind of the nuts and bolts practicality of it, but also some of the philosophy and some of the deeper thinking of it. It's a really good book. So love that. Oh, this should have been with these. Okay. So we're going to jump back to spiritual books, though this is a history book as well. And it's written by his wife, but I love the guy. He's not a doctor, he should be, but Ron Wyatt, picture of him there. This book details the remains of Noah's Ark, which you can see a picture of right there. Remains of Noah's Ark in Turkey, again written by his wife, and it just goes over those kind of details. Very cool book. Definitely enjoyed that. Oh, this one first. I think this is the last of my spiritual books. This just goes into the giants of the Bible. The Bible obviously mentions giants. This book helps show you from Genesis to today, literally, the story of the giants. And technically, I might as well bring it, because this is kind of like an updated version or / part 2. Did this one as well. But by Stephen Quayle. You can also find him on YouTube. I love these books. He did a very good job. He's kind of the guru when it comes to this topic. He's studied it. He's collected so much information. So, those books are very cool. Yeah, I guess we can jump into this one. This one kind of is different than most of these, because this is, that guy, his thoughts. But a very good book. I enjoy reading what he has to say. I got it, because of 2016 and wanted to know more about him. Definitely recommend. All right, and before we get into my final section, which is the fiction books, I want to mention this book. This is one of my favorite books. It is a dictionary. I think this is the best English dictionary. I definitely reference it often, and I will be using it as I continue to dig into the English of my books, especially when the characters get into Xerath, because, well, there's a little difference in the English there. Because they're an English-speaking world in my books. But, like I said, it's different. All right, so we're going to get into the fiction books here now. Start here, a series of unfortunate events. Just the first three, those are the ones I read. And this is actually one of the rare instances where I enjoyed the movie that was made more than the books. They're good books. It's a good read, but I did enjoy the movie better. That's rare. It's the only thing, the only set of books that does that for me. Okay. Gotta mention Ted Dekker. I enjoyed his series. I don't have them all here because I think my brother actually owns one. Can't remember. I think I bought this and then read my brother's because he had the rest of them. Anyways, but yeah, this was a good series. It's Christian fiction, very different, very unique. At least in my reading experience, this is like nothing else. A little bit cerebral, just a little. But definitely some kind of science fiction fantasy mixed in there. All right. Where do we start? I guess I don't have C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia because I don't actually own a copy. I own the third book. I just haven't bought the copy. When I was a kid, they were read to me, and then I read them as a teenager. I reread them. So I love Chronicles of Narnia, but I just haven't got around to buying a copy yet. And right now I don't have any spare money, so I won't be buying it anytime soon. But I do love the Chronicles of Narnia. But speaking of other ancient authors, and I haven't read that one, but I do own it to maybe one day get into it. But yes, these. Love these. Obviously that one's good, but love these. This is Lord of the Rings, I should say. I keep forgetting the distance of the camera there, but got all three here. These were actually bought for me by one of my good friends when I was a teenager. He got me into this series, and it was perfect timing because literally the month or a couple of months after I finished reading the last book, they announced, this was back in year 2000, they announced they were going to do the movies. Oh, I was ecstatic because I was like, this would make amazing movies. And, well, it's history now. They did. All right, so that was Tolkien. I mentioned C.S. Lewis. Gotta mention, before I get there, gotta mention Frank Peretti. These books were a huge influence in my life. It's an amazing series, just a two duology, I guess, 2-book set, but it helps you understand Frank Peretti series, Piercing the Darkness, and then This Present Darkness. Anyways, it helps you understand angels, demons, how they work, how they interact with us. It's brilliant. It really helps for the Christian who wants to understand what is this spiritual influence that sometimes happens, and how do the angels protect us. That book helps you visualize it beautifully. It would be hard to do, but it would make some excellent films. All right, what do we do first? I love these series both so much. I guess we'll do this one first. Harry Potter. Obviously, among some Christian circles, it is taboo, which I think is ridiculous because it is fiction. Of course, I'm a researcher, so I know the difference between real-life magic, which is very dark, and fictional magic, which is not. Though, obviously, there's going to be dark magic in here because of the bad wizards, but there is a very clear distinction between good and evil, and believe it or not, there's even books written about it. I own a couple. There is a lot of Christian themes powerfully demonstrated in the Harry Potter series. So, there's 7 books of the series. If you know about the movies, there's 8 movies because they split the last movie in half. Gotta say, because people are gonna ask, you know, which are my favorite books? Love the whole series, love them all, but I definitely, when I got to book 3, I found that a very enjoyable book. But when I got to book 5, I love this book. I love the Righteous Rebellion in this book. It is awesome. I mean, Umbridge is one of those villains you love to hate. So I love this book. and of course going through it, all, I would say, though I claim this as my favorite, they're kind of equal. I love the first and last books, and close second would be Half-Blood Prince. That one is also very good. So that is my ranking of Harry Potter books. Love them all. J.K. Rowling, definitely an excellent writer. I'm going to show you her website here in a little bit. And there's Christopher Paolini, is one of my favorite authors. Again, fiction, fantasy. Amazing series. It's 4-book set, first one to the last one. Got the Dragon Rider, Aragon, his story. Love that. I've read it through several times. I've made my own personal notes on the maps. But this is very cool. Very cool. Just can't get enough of this. I think I've read through these 4 times. And then I have a bit of fan fiction of this story in my series that I'm writing, though of course I've had to change all the names because, you know, copyright issues. But those who love those books, well, I explain it directly. It's in book 3. It's explained directly that, hey, this next section is, you know, directly inspired from that, and encourage people to go read it. That's amazing. But now to finish off the fiction section, I mean, technically this gets into like history and science, but it's mythology, so, you know, fiction. But I love mythology, and these are just the 2 of the books that I've enjoyed, read, studied the most, that I own. Both of them, actually, I got because of college, because I took some courses. But yeah, I really did enjoy these books. It's just really cool how it spells out the details of mythology, because I like mythology. Greek, Norse, Roman, Egyptian mythology. I find it all fascinating. All right, just a couple more fiction books here. This one is an amazing read, and it has a sequel, which I own too. But just it's fun, it's exciting. It explores the ideas. What if an EMP knocked almost everything out and put us back to pre-industrial age? So it's a lot of fun to read this one. I definitely enjoyed this book. It's got a foreword by Newt Gingrich because, you know, obviously it's pertinent. If an EMP could and did happen to us today, obviously, you know, we wouldn't be having these videos. We wouldn't have a computer or a phone or a tablet to watch it on. So it's fascinating. What would happen in America if all the power got shut off permanently? All right. Now to get into an interesting combination. Now, this is cool. Rosie Dow, she was my literature teacher. So really love this series. One, it's not a series, but, well, okay, I got 3 of her books, and I love all of them. I've reread them several times. They're so good. But it's better because I got to interact directly with the author, and she's directly inspired me in my writing. In fact, she gave specific, in our literature class in high school. I went to Christian school. I was homeschooled most of my life, but I went to Christian school for high school. She was my literature teacher the last 2 years, I believe. Or was it last year? I think it was the last 2 years. Anyways, in her class, she gave writing assignments, and I actually wrote out what would become the first few chapters of my first book in her class. And at the time when I wrote it, she told me, "This is awesome. This is great." So, and I was, of course, inspired by that, though not like in a heavy way because I didn't actually start writing until a while later. But I kept those notes and I kept those ideas in my head, and she was a big inspiration, Rosie Dow. But this book is cool. This specific book is history/fiction. In other words, it has a historical setting and it accurately records the history of what happened, which is the Monkey Scopes trial in Tennessee. But it has a fiction murder mystery story tied in, so it's fun. It's excellent reading, like I said, read it multiple times. And then her 2 other books, they're not necessarily connected. I don't think so, but they're both of a similar style, kind of action spy thriller style. Really good, and I think, yep, she co-authored these with Andrew Snaden, but these were a lot of fun. I've read through these 4 or 5 times. I enjoy them, and again, by my childhood literature teacher. So I've always been fascinated. I got taught by an author that I look up to. I love that idea. Just a couple more. This is a picture book with amazing artwork in it. Just absolutely amazing. Can't get enough of these. There's a set of 4. I have all 4. There might be more, but I have the 4 that existed, and they're beautiful. I love the world building in these books. Again, the artwork is incredible. And one more, because I love giant things. This book, it's one of those cutaway books. I have a number of these when it comes to Star Wars. But really cool book because I love Zeppelins. I love airships. One day I'd like to own an airship, if not more. Big ones too. But alright, that has been a look at most of the key books that have been an influence in my life. Obviously a lot of Bible related stuff, because that's one of the topics I love. I like studying Bible, history, science, how those all connect. But I also really enjoy politics and science fiction and movies and just fiction in general, fantasy. I love that stuff. And I know that there's a gazillion more fantasy and science fiction books out there. I have a few others that I have read. I did start reading the series, the science fiction series that C.S. Lewis wrote. Well, I actually had that series, but I only read the first book. And it was kind of similar to this, because there's a Christian fiction setting, and it's very cerebral. It was fascinating. But I've just never been, of course, I don't feel like I have time to read right now. Right now, I'm in the middle of writing, so I don't know that I'll be getting into reading that, because I have a list of books that I go to, and I'm reading little by little, slowly, as I find inspiration and time to read them. So that one kind of falls way back on the list of books I might eventually read. But anyways, I was saying, I've read other books. There's a number of Star Wars books. Timothy Zahn, I should definitely mention him. I love his writing when it comes to Star Wars, Expanded Universe. His character, Thrawn, is obviously amazing. I have his new book on Thrawn. I still need to read it. Again, it's on that list of books to read. But yeah, this has been a sampling of books. I have a whole bunch more. I think I mentioned it, or maybe I didn't. I own over 760 books, so I have a small library. And most of the books here are my library, but there is a whole bunch more in my room. And those books back there are actually my mom's books. She owns over 600 books. So together we have a decent sized library. If we ever got around to it, for sure we could, well, we'd have to have a separate room, but we could have a library. We have had people borrow books from us. One other book I do want to mention, and I got this from Dr. Tom Horn. I mentioned one of his books earlier, but that's not the one. It's this one. This is very cool to have. Book of Jasher. Well, all of these. Enoch, Jasher, Jubilees. But Jasher I've enjoyed the most. But for a Bible reader, Bible studier, it's an amazing reference to have that. Book of Jasher just explains in more detail the stuff that's written in Genesis, Exodus, especially Genesis. It's a fascinating read. But yeah, this has been a look into the books that have influenced me. Hope you've enjoyed it. Those of you in the future, you now know a little bit more about the author that you are now enjoying. For those of you who have not yet gotten my book, you should definitely get it and read it. About to end here, and I almost forgot. I wanted to show a couple things. Alright, so I'm going to minimize, and then I'm going to maximize. Here we go. Yes. Okay. That's my personal Facebook. And then this would be the Facebook page for my book. So you look here for, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you'd look here to see what videos I post. But you also look here to see what videos am I watching specifically in regards to my writing. So this page is going to help show all the stuff that I'm looking at when it comes to what is influencing me, what am I studying as far as writing characters, all that kind of thing. All right. Now here, like I said, C.S. Lewis. This is the official website, so you can go here to learn more about this guy, but huge influence in my life. I just wanted to point out this webpage, cslewis.com. And then here's where you would go to look up for Tolkien, the Tolkien Society, and then of course here's a biography. And C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were friends, and both had some similar ideas, but obviously Tolkien took the more, I've used this word a couple times now, cerebral approach to his writing, because he went in depth, created a whole language, and really set a foundation for modern fantasy that is still used to this day. You know, he's kind of like the godfather of fantasy, really. At least that's how I see him, or a father, however you want to see it. He's definitely a master. And then J.K. Rowling started writing in the 90s, and she obviously did such an amazing job. Her books are still popular today. I know there's controversy about her social media, but I never look at that, so it doesn't bother me. What she wrote with Harry Potter is amazing. Love it. And the movies, they're excellent too. And she did have her hand in making sure those movies are good. It all turned out awesome, but fantasy, the reason I love it so much, really helps pull out ideas, helps you think about certain things in a certain way, just the way Frank Peretti did with his Present Darkness. And that's what's so good about fiction. Is fiction helps you think through things, helps you picture things, helps you understand things in a way you never would if you didn't read fiction. So that's why I love fiction. I love thinking through things. I like having critical thinking skills. And if you think of critical thinking as a circle, there's different pies to it. Science fiction is fiction. Fiction in general is one of those pies of learning. In other words, you can't have full, proper critical thinking if you don't have an enjoyment looking into, understanding of, and thinking about science fiction. Fiction. Keep saying science fiction. Fiction in general. Science fiction is part of fiction, of course. But yeah. Just wanted to put these thoughts out here. Again, this is more so for a future audience. I want to bring up this webpage. I have this presentation on Prezi.com. If you want to know more about me personally, I'd recommend you go here. Anybody can watch it. It has a pretty cool slideshow that is all set up. I designed it in college. At the moment I'm looking at it, probably because my internet's a bit, bogged down because I'm recording. Or no, I'm not live streaming. I don't know why it's taking time. Anyways, you can enjoy it. Lord willing, you'll have better internet and the pictures will come up fast. But if you want to know more about me, Prezi.com, Life and Adventures of J.R. Carmona, that's me. You can enjoy and look at that. I have some of the stuff I went over here. You see it right there, but there's a lot more as well. This goes over my life story. And for those who care, for those who are curious, you can take a look at this. Alright, well I think that has been the video. And again, thank you for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful in understanding who I am as a writer. And definitely encourage you to get into more reading if you haven't. All of the books that I referenced here today you could enjoy. Obviously, this is a video recording, so go back through, pause, zoom in, take pictures if you need to, take notes. You can look at the authors, the specific names and titles of books. I highly recommend all of these books that I showed you. And I think that's it. Peace.